at Leeds Golf Club and I'm going to be testing out the new TaylorMade SIM2 fairways and putting them head to head against last year's SIM offering. Now there's a lot to get through here, so we better get on with it. Okay, first up let's have a go with the new SIM2 model. I usually use a cut down shaft in a 3-wood, and it's really weird to use a full length one. It noticeably feels quite a lot longer, so I'm not sure if that's going to affect my overall dispersion and control. This sits really nicely over the ball. I actually think it's a bit squarer than last year's offering. I would say I kind of wish they'd brought that blue from the drive around the back of the crown. I know we don't have that tech in here, but I did really like that look. That was really nice. Almost straight on the line. I didn't strike that good, but it's actually gone really well and very straight, which is weird. Oh, struck that really nice. I have to say I really like the feel with this. Surprisingly, this has been really consistent so far. I thought with the longer shaft I was going to struggle a bit, but the ball fly has been really good. I think it's pretty good. This is designed to be the fastest model in the SIM fairway wood range, and from that point of view I have to say I was probably a little bit disappointed with the carry distance. I averaged 209 on average here, although I did have some shots up at 214, but I think if you compare that to what I was getting with the drivers at over 230, that's quite a big drop off and quite a big gap to have in your bag. Now personally I wonder if this is just the setup. Obviously we've still got stock samples here, I haven't been custom fit for this shaft and it didn't feel quite right to me, and because of that the numbers were a bit inconsistent. So on some of my shots where I struck it really well, I had a beautiful ball flight and a really nice shot shape, but I was noticeably inconsistent with quite a few variables in terms of height and also spin and shot shape. Now I really do love the look of this and the feel, so I think maybe in a custom fitting I could get this dialed in more for me, but currently it's just not quite cutting it. But let's go and see how the Max offering compares. I've got the SIM2 Max now. First off I've got a different shaft in this, and this is 50 grams rather than the 65, but it is a regular, so I think that's going to prove some performance differences as well as the club head, but this is a fixed head unlike the SIM2 Ti, so I can't change that. Definitely feels a bit easier to launch straight away. Ooh, that was nice. I definitely think this is going a bit further than the other model. Even from those first few shots there, it's definitely noticeable that this is a lot more consistent in terms of ball flight and height. That went so straight, it's a joke. Tell you what, when you catch this, the flight is awesome. I actually enjoyed hitting this a lot more than the other model, which I'm definitely surprised about, because usually my preference is towards something that's smaller on the eye, but I just felt a lot more comfortable over this, and I don't know if that was a combination of the different shaft as well. Now the Ti is designed to be the longest, but as soon as I started hitting this I felt like it was going further, and it was. On average this was up at 213 compared to 209 with the Ti offering. It also had a higher ball flight, a little bit of a steeper descent angle and a bit more spin, which I would have definitely expected. But for me the biggest take here was the improvement in dispersion. Obviously this is the Max model so it's meant to be more forgiving, but honestly my dispersion was almost halved with this, and it was really good and really consistent, and to be honest I was super impressed with how this performed. Okay, time to put them up against last year's offerings and see what improvements we've got. First up, let's hit the sim. It's so weird going back to this now because I can't believe how open this sits compared to this year's offering. I know this is something they really worked on because Tiger in particular wanted a different visual of the ball, but this year's offerings definitely sit a lot squarer. Somehow this feels a bit lighter than the new offering. I think that probably suits me a bit better. That new one just felt really heavy, and it doesn't feel heavy, so maybe it was the cupboard. Not gonna lie, I'm hitting this pretty solid. I swear I didn't hit this good last year. That was pretty interesting because I felt like I was striking this a lot better than with the SIM2, but then the average distance came out as exactly the same at 209 yards. Now this was probably a bit more inconsistent in terms of front to back dispersion, because I had shots ranging from 200 yard carry up to 217, but then my best shot, that 217, was further than my best shot with the SIM2, which is definitely quite interesting. I would also say with this that the height of my shots was a lot more consistent, and I do definitely think this is down to a feel or a weighting thing. This felt a lot lighter for me and a lot easier to hit. Now in terms of dispersion, they were both pretty similar to be honest, but this was definitely a little bit more right biased than the SIM2 offering. Right, finally I've got last year's SIM Max. Now I've got the same Ventus Blue shaft in this, but unfortunately this is a 60 stiff compared to the 50 regular in this year's model, so we're going to see a bit of a difference from that, but let's hit a few shots anyway and see how the two stack up. Again, this sits quite open behind the ball and it's very noticeable after you've been back from the SIM2 offerings. And I think I actually do prefer this year's darker crown. It just sits behind the ball nicely and makes kind of the ball stand out a bit more. I can definitely notice this shaft feels heavier and quite a bit stiffer already. Definitely finding this is a lot more draw bias than this year's offering. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't hit that great. I actually really struggled to control it, and overall that showed not just in my dispersion but also in my average carry distance, which was down at 208. Now I definitely hit a lot more shots left with this, and I don't know if that's just because the face was sat open at address and that was just a visual thing for me, but it was definitely noticeable in the dispersion. Overall this flew lower than the new model, it also had not a steep descent angle, and it span a little bit less. So overall I've gained 5 yards with the new model, but I think the most impressive thing was the fact that my dispersion basically halved. So overall I'm really impressed with the visual changes in both of these, especially how they sit behind the golf ball and they're definitely a lot squarer. Personally for me with the SIM2 Ti model I didn't really see any massive gains, but I think that was down to the feel of the club and it felt a lot heavier to me than last year's offering. But I was super impressed with the performance of the SIM2 Max, and at some points when I was hitting it, the ball flight and the shots were just awesome if I'm honest. I really loved the high flight and the trajectory and felt like I could really control this. And picking up 5 yards on last year's model is pretty good too. I think this is definitely a fairway wood to keep your eye out on this year. Right, that's all for today. If you have any questions about the TaylorMade fairway woods or anything else in the SIM2 range, feel free to drop a comment below or send me a message on Twitter or Instagram. Keep your eye on our channel for more new reviews coming soon, and make sure you hit that subscribe button too. And if you're after more golf content, head to the National Club Golfer social media channels for more.